Hi, my name is Benedict, looking at the new Reason Studios Chord Sequencer, looking at it pretty quickly because people are already starting to ask me, what do I think? And I'm not always a big fan of these kinds of devices. Sometimes they can add a lot of value, sometimes they can lead us into a less than useful path. Just like drinking beer to resolve our unhappiness issues sort of seems to work. Ooh, more beer. But the problem is tomorrow we've still got the problems we had, plus a headache, which makes us less able to deal with them. So what is this? Is this a more beer problem? There are some good things about the concept here. I'm not going to judge specifically whether this is a good or bad device. I haven't spent the time with it. I've spent maybe half an hour tops because keep having to ferry the kids to and from work and deal with their problems. Yay, parenting. But it's interesting, and I think that there is definitely, in terms of what the device itself is setting out to do, far more good than otherwise. I've tried a few of these sorts of let's help you write music things over the years, and generally they don't last very long with me. This one I can sort of see how it's kind of cool. So please don't ask me whether I think the feature set's great or why is it missing this or that. Don't know, don't care, that's your problem. I'm not going to go spend a lot of time going over what it does or how it does it, because again, that's already covered. We do naturally have quite a pile of genre-y kinds of things. I guess different chord styles of chord progression are prone to being used in different styles of music, so that's probably fair enough. How good are they? Don't know. My concern with one of these devices out the gate, of course, is are we just going to make formula, boring, safe, thoughtless things? A lot of modern pop music struggles tremendously from trying to be too safe. And they will put in some sort of trickery, production trickery, to try to hide the fact that it doesn't do anything interesting, which a proper sort of singer would kind of do. And from time to time, they would change the way they present in the song and do something interesting to make it always like, ooh, that's kind of cool. And using these sorts of things can deliver us the complete opposite, whilst we justify to ourselves that it's correct because the software told me it was correct. Have courage in music. These can undo courage. But so long as you can apply courage, I guess you can use a tool like this to help you, so long as you've applied courage to add the interesting bit to it to make it so that it's not just, oh no, hurdy-gurdy, hurdy-gurdy, hurdy-gurdy. So, you've probably seen that you can choose your key and scale and choose your form. I've only tried this form, and then go through and pick some things and drag them into here. Here's one I prepared earlier. Now, they tell me that's all pretty safe. I guess it is. Would I have written that on my own? Probably not. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? That's one of the things that I have to sort of try to understand. Would I invest time and money into this? Is it going to give me something better than I would otherwise do, or something that I wouldn't otherwise do? Well, as such, that chord progression, the way it sits, no, I don't think it would have turned out like that. Who knows? C, A, we've got F. Probably wouldn't go on C, A, F, but why not? C, A, F, G, I probably would have gone down to D, but there's nothing wrong with that. They encouraged me F and G being safer, so that's where I went. Okay, good E, O. There are various things that you can do from here, but I wanted to export the notes and see, is it going to help me compose something that I can consider as my music, or am I going to always feel like I'm working on somebody else's piece of music that's probably a bit pointless? So I exported the notes, felt that they were too short, so just doubled the length of it. Okay, great, problem solved. I then realised that, hang on, the bottom note was not really my root note of the chord, but there is a button for that. So I pressed the bottom note and exported again, and could see that the bottom note of the whole pile of notes that they exported happened to be the root note, the C, the A, the F, the G, the what have you. So I was able to take that and turn it into a bass note. So what we ended up with was somewhat like this. This is the chords minus that extra bottom note. And they looked a fair bit like this. Would I have written notes that looked like that? Probably not. Doesn't make them right, doesn't make them wrong, just makes them different. So as such, from the beginning, as soon as I've got my sound made, and I just made the sound on the fly, with a few little sort of like, oh, I'll do this, I'll do that. I made some little changes to these final chord here just to make the sense of a cadence a little bit more obvious. Right, wrong, again, not interested. Remember, there was another set of notes below this which were our bass notes. So I just cloned this, chopped everything but the lowest notes, insta bass line. Let's open this up. Oh, I realise that these are all little higgledy-piggledy. Is that actually a thing? It seems that maybe they gave me those notes with a little bit of variety in them. Good on them. None of my patches were set up to use that, but it's probably random. So while it loosens things a little, it doesn't add any sort of human feel, as far as I'm aware. Maybe there is something that where they're AIing something resembling human feel. I'm not sure, because they don't seem to be quieter as such here than they are here, although 1, 2, 3, no, it would need to be louder on 5, but it is perhaps a little louder. I don't think that there's a lot of logic in that. I think it's just a bit random. I'm guessing. So now that I have okay, it's starting to sound like a piece of music that actually belongs to somebody. Next thing that I added was, well, because it was easy, drums. I took a lot of care in programming these drums by using Beatmap. It did actually take a little bit of time to find an outcome with Beatmap that felt like it in any way meshed with the main pattern here. It's still a little not how I would program it, but you know, it's got its sense of more working than not. But I admit, I still don't really feel like this is necessarily a Benedict piece of music. Am I gonna, you know, top and tail it, put it out and go, my next record, which is actually in the can? No, because it doesn't really feel like something that I would have written. Therefore, I don't feel very connected to it. But it's not finished. There's no sense of purpose to it. Yes, there's movement in the sense that the chords indicating an up and down and what have you, and that's good. It's doing that. So then it's a case of a lead. So with my lead, I added this in, and we will show you how when I can press the right buttons, or better when I actually look at my keyboard. So I've taken these initial notes, and there's nothing but chord notes here, so it's very, very safe, and then added in a lead sound. Again, I'm not interested in whether you think that's a good melody or not, whether it breaks, you know, So Urquhart of Burkhart's rules for melody writing, it was just like, okay, I'll do that, I'll do that. Oh, now I feel like I want to do that. So as such, that's become my melody, and I'm happy with that. And it transitions what I'm hearing from being something that doesn't really seem like my work at all to something that's like, okay, there's a Benedictism in here. Not enough time spent in this to necessarily say that that's my piece, but as a starter, I've ended up with an initial palette of chords here, therefore possible notes and things that I can steal from to give a sense of, okay, yeah, look, I can build a piece from this. So in that sense, yes. In that sense, it's kind of cool. I then thought, well, okay, that's fair enough. But what's going to happen if I were to be partway through composing an idea and then say, can I get this thing to help me? And again, I know I'm missing some features. I think the incoming MIDI notes can control what happens in here. So don't tell me that I'm using it wrong, because I know I'm using it wrong, but I'm just using it very simply. So skip to 2. We'll turn this out for the moment and have a look at the notes that belong to this. This is completely separate from the stuff above, so I actually should mute all of these. So here's a reasonably easy, common enough sort of progression that I might use. I might go, look, I'll go a C, an A, an E, and a D. I then asked, well, okay, what will you do, Mr. Sequencer? What will you do if I ask you to do C, A, E, and D? And I did this relatively thoughtlessly, in the sense that I picked a C and then found the one that started with A. They weren't particularly keen on my choosing it, but you know what? I've decided on A. Bugger you, I'm going to choose it. And then went from there. C, A, E. Where was the E? I think they didn't like that one either. There we go. They were happy with that one. And then a D. They were only sort of passingly happy with that. So we got this. All right, fair enough. But what did I do if I said, okay, I'll just turn those into tritones? So we'll hear the... So C becomes C, E, G. That simple. Just turn them into blunt tritones. Not quite the same as what they gave me. Oops, need to turn that off because otherwise it starts controlling it. I fall for that all the time. So that's what I've done. That's what they've done. No right or wrong. Obviously, this feels more familiar to me when I listen to the Benedict thing, but they've done something different. I can then say, well, okay, that's not particularly elegant. We've got this great big leap. So I can move and even these out. So I've created an inversion. So I've dragged this note that's sitting proud up top, dragged it below, so we've got a more even flow. We can now see that the flow of our chord melody is shaped. Okay, fair enough. I would work with that. I wouldn't care whether anybody said it was right or wrong. It's a valid chord progression. And then, for a variation, I could have done this. There would be ways to actually bridge those two together, like this here. Maybe that should be back up here. But I've got a basic understanding of chords. I am definitely no chord master whatsoever. So the question is, obviously in the situation, seeing I can manage to make my own chords, I'm not real good with them. Is there advantage in doing this? I don't know. I really don't know. I'll just mute that and turn this back on. It's just different from what I would have done. So if I were open to, and I don't know how open I am going to be to this, because the only way to know is to have it in my arsenal, and next time I go to make a piece, go, oh, am I naturally going to reach for this? Or am I just going to make my very Benedict chord progressions the way I make them, for better or for worse? That would only be a time will tell kind of thing. One of the things that I wonder about in here, okay, indie ballad, is this offering me, okay, add nines, no fives, suspendeds. Is it going to offer me, let's say a flat 4 or a flat 5? Not that I know much about these things, but they're kind of interesting. And I know that bands will use them because when guitarists are working their way through things, they will move through these really interesting chords, which maybe are not considered here. I don't know the answer to that. But I was just watching a classical composer reacts to Judas Priest's Painkiller. And he's like, oh, they moved through this to that, another flat, this, another. I was like, okay, cool. I don't listen to those things to work out how can I clone their chords, just because it's sort of interesting. Not enough to watch any more of him, but interesting. And Painkiller is a very impressive piece of work. It's not as good as Another Thing Coming, but the construction of these songs is intriguing. They develop this huge amount of power, often with relatively minimal work. So again, never here to say should or shouldn't. My initial idea is that it's interesting. If you want to be in control of chords, yes, this will give you a leg up, but will it really give you a leg up? Because whilst you're relying on this to write your chords for you, you're probably not really learning anything about chords and how they're constructificated at all. My chordage has improved the more I do what I do. Yes, I definitely could use some assistance from somebody who's a wee bit smarter than me, who could say, rather than that, I see what you're trying to do, but why don't you move that, major chord here, or, that straight tritone here, why don't you move that to a flat 32nd with an inverted quintuplet? And then you'd be like, ooh, bugger me if that doesn't sound like, yeah. But that's something a device like this can never do for you. Therefore, it can become a real trap. You have to make that balance there. If you're not using chords and wanting to use chords, then either learn to use chords or maybe use this, but bear in mind you could be setting yourself up for a trap as well. The device as it sits, without getting into all of the features, I think is pretty cool. I think that it's for its inevitable limits, seeing that there's an awful lot more to this kind of stuff than we see here. I think it's really pretty nicely delivered, and the ability to, sort of magic something up the way that I did with this first one, to go from, let's just turn this on, to go from this to stop. This was a little faster than I'd normally do. But one of the questions is fast really a positive in music making? there are times we have to be fast. But normally by the time we get to that point where we have to be fast, we should have enough skills to be doing this at that level. Otherwise, we shouldn't be at that level. You know, if I'm in the studio as a session player for the Beach Boys, they have some idea what they're doing, and they ask me to come up with the chord progression because they've given me a melody. I shouldn't be there. My going, oh well, I've got to do that fast. Somebody who knows what they're doing would be able to go, yeah, can you sing that to me? That was that, and then up there we go. Oh no, how about we rearrange it? We do that, and then Brian says, yeah, but Mum, and he goes, and we're done. That's because you've got skills, not relying on something like this. I see a lot of videos where people are talking about make your song fast. That just means you're rushing it. And why does it need to be done fast? Is it because you're afraid that you're going to get more than 10 minutes into this and lose interest? Fair enough, if it's a hobby, I guess. You know, it's like I bought my 500-piece puzzle, and it's like, oh, that's too many pieces for me. Next time I buy a puzzle, it's going to have 4 pieces. I'll be the master of that one. I'll slay that one. All them 4 pieces. Then I'll be able to tell everyone how good I am at puzzles. Yeah, that's one you've got to sort of have a chat to your God about. But this works out quite nicely. Add in the parts. It'd be better if the drums were actually more tighter rhythmically involved, but we get there. So if I wanted to see that as a kind of, well, I'm the soloist, and I haven't really written anything, but I lob into the studio, and the house band says, here, we've got some backings for you, and I pull out my tutti flute, and because my name's Aka Bilk, of course, because I'm just that good. Then I can sort of go, oh, okay, right, okay, fair enough, yep, I hear what you're doing, and then decide to solo over the top of it and say, here's the next record. Yes, this makes perfect sense, but understand that the backing that you're going to get just by relying on this is not going to have the magic of, I don't know who Bilk's keyboard player was, but it's not going to have the magic of either a really seasoned keyboard player. Let's say Michael McDonald from the Doobie Brothers. The guy could, tickle the ivories and he could play. And he had a lovely feel for how he put together the construction because he wrote so many songs. This is not going to give you that because he does it from feel. Yes, he probably knows what chords are, but he probably doesn't go, oh, I'm here, so I'm going to use that next. He does it because he just knows it just comes out. And these little bots can't give you that feel. They equally can't give you the wild feel of, say, guitarist from Joy Division, Ian Curtis. I say guitarist, even though you're probably going to think, oh, he was a singer. But he was a guitarist, and honestly, he was a really weird player. My understanding is that he didn't particularly like playing guitar and he wanted to not play guitar, but they were like, no, man, you got to play guitar because you play it so strangely. You play it so well, and that's part of the Joy Division thing, that the guitar playing is unique. It is definitely not formulaic, robotic. So if we're at the level of kind of nobody and we walk into a studio with a backing band that's, Benedict and the Bot Boys, yes, this is the sort of backing that I'm going to get, and then I've got to really shine to try and make these magic. If I'm walking in with, say, the Doobie Brothers, and I'm going to play my clarinet over the top, then the backings are going to have a kind of magic to them. If I were walk into Joy Division, and once I stop screaming, then I'm going to play my, well, it wouldn't be a clarinet because that wouldn't be cool. What would I be playing? Oh, I don't know. My synthesizer, I guess. over the top, then there's going to be a magic in that, because there was a magic in what those boys, actually there were no girls until New Order, so boys were doing. And if you use this to begin, but then work out how to have your magic, your, ooh, let's stand out, brilliant. But my great concern is that if you're using this from the get-go, then you're probably going to start here and finish here, which means that your backing band is the Bot Boys. And that will never see you develop either the wild magic of Joy Division or the beautiful finesse of a Doobie Brothers or a Steely Dan or a whatever. So it's going to move you forward a little bit quickly, but I think it's also going to see you take 2 steps back once you've gone to the end of where this gets, because you'll go, oh, okay, I could go G major 7 next, but I don't think you're going to understand what a G major 7 is at all. Therefore, you're not really going to be able to create one, let alone have that instinctive understanding how moving from an A to a G major 7 works, because we don't do this consciously. When we play, we don't consciously go there. If we understand our keyboard, just the white keys, please, then we've got a sense of our jump. Let's go to this guy. This guy helps when you press the right thing. C. There's an instinctive sense of where I want to go next. There's still a sense in that. You may be like, yeah, but those leaps are really huge. But you know what? I can hear a Benedictism in what I'm playing. So I'm trying to play something random, but I'm actually not. It actually sounds like something that I would compose. If we were to put them back in the same octave, if I knew what I played, there would be a logic to it. So I think the device seems pretty cool in its workflow. It's quite Reason in that it seems very focused. Here's what we do, that they haven't added too many frills. There are some useful frills, like being able to add the root note to the bottom or the top, that you can remove the bass below a certain point, or auto. I didn't read what that is. Auto would make more sense. And there's a thing on the back, a CV, that you can actually shuttle that out to somewhere else. Personally, I think you want to be taking these notes, rendering them down, and then starting to be in control of them, but that's your business. But the fact that those couple of things were there, well, particularly the add root note to bottom, was handy, because I looked at my notes and took the bottom one off and was like, this sounds wrong. This doesn't sound bassline at all. It's broken. So that was useful. So there's obviously some nice features in here. Velocity, timing. Well, they didn't seem to be humanized, but I was getting a humanized sense out of them. Don't care. That's probably in the manual, which I didn't read, because I shouldn't need to read it when looking at something like this. And the fact that I've got most of the functions with no effort whatsoever means that it's nicely designed. So bottom line, I think it's very nicely designed, bearing in mind what it does. Is what it does a really good idea? That's going to depend on your point of view. I think ultimately my point of view is going to be like, yeah, it's kind of interesting, but if I really want to be able to understand the relationship between a C major and a D minor 7, I probably better either go get a teacher or do some reading on why that has a relationship, because otherwise I think maybe I'm just putting in random notes, and it's not really kind of making my music, expressing things the way that I do. And so, fair enough, some people will go, but you want to get it right because your music sounds weird, man. Your melodies are like whack. It's like, okay, cool, you're not a fan of my music. That's quite all right. I'm probably not a fan of the stuff that you dig, or maybe even the stuff you do. So who says that you're right and I'm wrong? Obviously you do, but it's probably not what I'm saying. You know what I mean? So choose which path you think matters for you. and then go at it with courage. If you do go this way to have the Bot Boys as your backing band, again, my advice is find ways to take the basic ideas, probably run them off, and then work out how to make them seem interesting. Comment that I made on a sort of it was a glam metal-ish track from, I think it was 86 or something or other. I think I vaguely recall it when I was a kid. It's probably 16 when it came out. Was that I said, it's funny because these sorts of records, when they came out, we kind of bypassed them because they seemed too formulaic, like lacking in the of being over the top. So you could have compared this band to, say, Motley Crue, and Motley Crue made it big. These guys didn't. I don't know whether they even had a second record, because they just didn't get enough interest to push them over the top. But I'm enjoying this song. I'm enjoying this song because, you know what, all the way through it, even though it's kind of formulaic and there isn't this sort of wild, like, oh, they did that, that you get in a Motley Crue, say, it was still full of little changes. And I was like, oh, okay, they went there. They could have gone there and been really safe, but they went there. They went, whoop. And so it was pleasing to listen to. If I had the record, I would pop it on and I would enjoy it when I popped it on. So if you're going down this road of having this start the process for you, make sure you find your way to make these things be musically unique to you and to have those points of interest. And those points of interest should not be going, wah, bagga, 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 beep, because you know what, every record goes, wah, bagga, 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 e, because it's the formula, therefore it's not remotely interesting. Joking with an old friend, an old boss, because we were DJs, commonly make musical jokes. So I mentioned Hazy Fantasy, shiny, shiny, right up behind me, shiny, shiny, shanana. The song is ridiculous, but you know what? There's a tremendous magic in it because it's unexpected, especially seeing they were both wearing rags. They look like they were brother and sister, and they're both wearing rags. And that's why the song worked so well. It captured people's attention, and they're like, they went out and bought it, and it was a hit. And it's still remembered today. You may not know it because you're probably too young to know it, but if you were there in about 1980 or whatever, it was a big deal. So don't get caught in being entirely the Bot Boys as a band. If you're going to use it as a starter, then really make sure you're understanding how it makes the connections. Your aim should be, I'll use it for a little while till I get to the point where I understand exactly what it's doing, therefore I can get rid of it. Kind of like hiring in a session player to play your guitar lines for you because you know your session player is going to get your idea and deliver it better. You spend your time learning from your session player, and then on the next record, hopefully you don't need to hire in that session player because you can walk in and go, yeah, I'm actually skilled enough now to play this myself. And that's what happened with plenty of bands. Of course, if you look into Kiss's Destroyer with Bob Ezrin, it was a make or break time for them. The record labels, you got to do something serious here, guys. And he would actually stop sessions and make them learn some of their theory, make them learn their parts in a better way. So, of course, when it comes out, it was a much better record than they normally made. And it set them up for life. Any broad questions? Ask them on down below. I never ask people to subscribe. I assume if you want to subscribe to me, you will. But if you are interested in having me assist you in a project, because this is what I do, I'm not about giving free advice. If you want me to assist you in a project, then there will be a link, probably says hire me. Go over to my site, have a look. If you think that I can help you get things done, get your story told, start having a conversation. We'll work out how to get you there. That's what I do.